How's it going, everyone? Got something special for you today, and what I hope is the first of a long line of pieces of content to help us forge a true comic community. And one of the aspects that transforms comic books from just a fandom into a community is the fact that a lot of the creators, the writers and the artists who make these stories, they're just as much of fans of the characters and stories as we are. And that really makes for some awesome engagement, especially in today's environment. Now, I recently had a chance to sit down over Zoom with Devmalya Pramanik. He's a highly accomplished artist who's worked with some of the best writers out there. And we discussed his fandom, his work, his career, and really how he came into this community. And it was a really, really fun conversation. I'm truly appreciative of him. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Full transparency, we had some technical difficulties, and I've tried to edit around that. So if you see some wonky stuff, it's technical difficulties, and we just had to work our way through them. So yeah, let's take a look.
It's always great to because comics can be such a lonely business, like we're just someone's scripting by themselves, someone's writing, drawing by themselves, and yeah, because it's so global now, right? People can work from anywhere, so people are working with more kinds of people, but the connection is still like only at conventions, and if you can't go to conventions, you're like you don't really get to connect that much, right?
Yeah,
So it's always
totally.
nice to talk to people interested in comics. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. So, to get into this, can you tell us a little bit about your story? A lot of creators seem to
Yeah.
get into it by being a fan. Were you a fan before,
Yeah.
or are you?
Sure, for sure. Like that's the thing. I think every creator, uh, I won't say every creator, but like a lot of creators that I know, they grew up like idolizing that those one or two comics that they had in their collection, and that kind of got them going. Yeah, you know what? I can do this. This looks doable, but also like this is amazing, right? So I grew up in India, right? I'm an Indian, and as you know, like India is not really great on the comic book scene, right? Like unless you went to like uh, like a big store, right? Like at the mall or something. And even then, you can only find trade paperbacks in the book
Okay.
section, right? You couldn't. There's not much monthly issues coming in, sort of thing happening over there. Um, so the only option I had was trying to find those small roadside stores where you find extremely backdated comics, and even then it was like coming out from an Indian imprint, right? Like single issues I later found out were like bigger, right? Whereas in India they had an imprint which printed it
Oh
at a
yeah.
much smaller size. It's called Gotham Comics, right? Because that's the guy who made it, that was his name. So he went with Gotham Comics, and that's where I got most of my comics. So uh, I would often walk to save money from the money that my parents gave me, and save that up to buy comics. And that's how I built up my collection of ratty comics that I used to read day in and day out, right? That's where I first read Adam Kubert's Ultimate X-Men. Yeah, so that's the thing. That introduction, yeah, it wasn't more introduction. Was more that was like one of the more formative comics that I read, right? Like his lines were so interesting and so cool, right? That yeah, it was very, very, very formative for me. I got introduced to so many legendary artists through that, right? Started with like Michael Turner, Adam Kubert, Igor Corday, um, Frank. No, honestly, I didn't see much Frank Whiteley around, but because back issues were kind of like that, and yeah, so that's the thing. That's where I started, and my love for it just kept growing. I would just go through issues over and over and over. And as I did that, I started drawing, right? I would draw what I saw. I would look at it and I would get inspired. I'd be like, wow, look at that. And I would draw. And yeah, so that's how it started, basically.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. So were they your aside from the ones you named, like who were some of your
Oh,
other
no,
like
no, no. Those
inspirations?
were just where I started. Those were usually the artists that I would see on the stand. I can't remember every artist that I saw in those ratty old comics, but I have so many inspirations. Like, man, it's wild. Like Olivier Coipel, is a big one. Alex Ross, of course, but again, he's kind of a different style. But
Yeah.
man, that man, whenever I would read comics by him, it would blow my mind. Frank Quitely, of course, like he was like a huge inspiration at one point in my life. I started trying to draw like him, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't think I can. That's crazy,
Yeah. I
right?
just
Like
read
the
All
way
Star
he draws.
Superman again recently. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Is like I saw his recent Batman, Absolute Batman cover,
Oh yeah.
and the man's got it. It's just, yeah, he's just a whole different level of genius, right? So many like. I really got into James Harren at one point. Yeah, so he was like a massive influence on me. He was the one who kind of, from him, what I got was I don't have to be clean and exact to be a comic book artist, right? You don't have to be absolutely clean. You can just be wild on the page if you want. And a lot of the beauty comes from being wild, having uncontrolled textures, brush strokes, right? That's where I learned how to be free. Uh, that's just to name a few. Like I have so many inspirations.
Yeah, I like that comment there about, about you being a little bit free to go outside the lines a little bit.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
And for a character like you're working on Moon Knight right now,
Oh, yeah.
that's very suited for him, I
Yeah,
think.
definitely. Because before I got it, because I would always view American comics and manga as two different things. Like the Japanese influence and the American influence as two different things. I'd be like, Western comics, that's where I'm gonna be, right? But because again, I knew manga before I saw James Harren's work. But once I saw James Harren's work, from there I realized that you can implement manga techniques into your work,
Mhm.
and like the sheer like brutality of action, the motion, the energy, there's like basically no limits. You don't have limits. You can do whatever you want as long as it looks good. Everyone will let it go through.
Yeah,
So that's the
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So, I was digging through your key collector section recently. It's like, okay, let's see who you've worked with because you're pretty accomplished in terms of,
Yeah. Yeah.
who you've worked
Yeah.
with. Hey,
Yeah.
like who are some of the favorite writers that you've worked with?
Oh, definitely. My favorites up there are Ram V and Jed McKay for sure.
Yeah.
Because the thing, Ram has, Ram's work is getting pretty big right now, right?
Very.
I started out actually with by working with him on Paradiso, and that was quite an experience. Like that was my first book with a major Western publisher, right? And yeah, it came with its own you know fun parts and challenging parts, right? I was still doing traditional work back then, but I didn't really, yeah, have a full handle on it. If you look at my Paradiso work, you can clearly see the James Harren influences, right?
Yeah, very much.
James Harren and Andrew Robinson, like Sean Gordon Murphy, all those influences. Yeah, I just pushed them into that book. But yeah, I was like, my style was evolving, and yeah, it was quite the experience. So, but watching Ram grow, I'm like, he has maintained the DNA of what he does, right? If you look at his earliest works, like I think I worked with him on an anthology called Black Mamba. It was like a collection of 4 stories, and I did 2 of them. And if you look at that and you look at what he's doing now, you still find similar through lines, right? And that's something I really admire about him. And next is Jed McKay, of course. Like I really, really enjoy working with him. He's got that hands-off kind of approach, right? He will write, and he writes in such a way that like the image just pops into your head. You
Oh
just
wow.
immediately get an image of what he wants you to draw, which lends itself very well to the style. Like he doesn't have a very, yeah, no, this is how I want it to look kind of approach. He comes in and he's like, this is the script, here you go. And he gives the artist like a lot of freedom with how they want to create the pages. And if you look at issue 4 and 5 of Fist of Khonshu,
Mhm.
you'll see that freedom come through. Like he just lets me run wild with the pages. make wild panel compositions. I break things, and he's like, do what, like, yeah, I trust you completely, go wild. That's something. I also really enjoyed working with Steve Orlando on Spider-Man 2099.
Oh
It's one of my
yeah.
all-time favorite characters, and it's so much fun that I got to work on him so early in my career. Uh, but Steve Orlando was great to work with. He has very specific visions, and he knows when to come in, when to pull back, and he's very easygoing, and he writes in such descriptive manner. You'll see if you look at the script, sorry, the art for the book, a lot of those things are actually described by him. He'll have very specific descriptors of, like, this is what was on the dinner table, right? Or this is what he was wearing. He has very specific things that he focuses on, and it comes through on the script. And I also really enjoyed working with Kevin Scott. Not much, like I did a 6-pager with him. But yeah, I had a lot of fun working with that. I did Deadpool and Deadpool, the Living Mummy crossover kind of. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that's the thing. I think I'm missing some names in there.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Dan
yeah.
Waters, Dan Waters was amazing to work with. I worked with him on the Man Who Fell to Earth. It was a David Bowie movie
Yeah.
adaptation. Uh, he adapted that so well. The thing, usually adapting from movies can be a bit difficult, but Dan brings such a voice to it. You saw what he was doing, and that was actually the book where I first started experimenting with panel layouts. If you can find it somewhere, that's where I started going a bit hog wild with the panels and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a formative book for me.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm gonna have to check that one out. So,
Yeah.
as a fan, what are you reading right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I don't have much time to read lately because I'm just going from, deadline to deadline.
Oh, fair
But yeah,
enough.
I recently got I've been reading Absolute Batman.
It's
Picked a
required
few of
reading
them up.
right now.
I think I'm still figuring out the comic book scene where I am. I'm in Peterborough, Ontario, and I'm trying to figure out, because they don't have comic book shops per se. It's all like tied into video games and comic book shops together, right, over here.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how I can be more responsive. Like I have to call them and tell them to pull something, but I can understand that there. So I picked up. I was reading the 2 issues of Batman, Absolute Batman, and then I got uh, this book by Nate Piekos called
Oh wow. Yeah.
yeah, the comic book lettering guy. Because yeah, I was thinking of doing some personal work. God knows when I'm going to get time to do that. But I definitely want to find some time to do that. And lettering is the thing that I absolutely have no knowledge of. So that's fun. And yeah, that's the thing. I definitely also want to go pick up New Gods and Absolute Wonder Woman,
Yeah. New good.
Superman if I can. But Absolute Wonder Woman is amazing because I love the artist. Hayden Sherman has also been like quite the contemporary to be working along with, right? Because he's one of those people too who genuinely Hayden Sherman and Jesse Lonergan. Lonergan, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Lonergan. These two people have like some of the wildest, wackiest paneling around, right? I think Jesse Lonergan is working on the New Gods with Ram.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
run is
So
awesome. I'm a
if you
big
look
Mr.
at his, yeah,
Miracle fan. Yeah.
I know, right? And that's the thing. If you look at Jesse's pages, you'll know, and like I'm saying it like you don't know, but if you look at any of his books, it's like breaks comic book storytelling, like just crushes it and just does his own thing, and it's fascinating to watch. So but also like the thing is with Absolute Batman, I realized once I was reading it, I haven't read much of Nick Dragara's work before
Mhm.
this. But when I see this, I'm like, yeah, he's also kind of crazy with that. If you think about it, like he adds so many panels to a page, and it doesn't feel hectic. You can still follow everything. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
It's busy,
basically
but
what.
it's logical at the same
Yeah,
time.
I know. And like there's action, but also when there's like story beats, people are talking, he'll throw in stuff and be like, yeah, this is how I'm breaking it up, right? And it's pretty great actually to read it and find out, like, because again, you don't always need big panels to put through an idea of what you're saying, right? So like in a page with like let's say 20 panels, he's like broken down a page into 20 panels, and there's just a panel of someone's hand flipping through cards, someone looking to the side, for a chair on which that, like, he just captures those small things, and there's a speech bubble in there, and it gets you the sense of what's happening through 20 panels, right? In a way that is like, if I had ever heard someone say, hey, do a page with 20 panels, I'd probably just die of a heart attack right there. Yeah, but that's why Absolute Batman was pretty eye-opening for me. That's what
Yeah,
I'm reading.
yeah, those are awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, to close it out, like, are you going to continue on with Moon Knight for a while, or you moving
Honestly,
around a
it's
little bit?
kind of up to the editors, because that's the thing. I was actually on yeah, like another creator I really enjoyed working with, Tom Bloom. He writes 6 billion kill 6 billion de devils, 6 billion devil. I have to find. It's
Is
a
it
pretty cool. You know what I'm talking about,
is it
right?
8 billion genies or
No, no, kill
oh
6 billion devils, something like that. I have to.
that one? Oh,
Yeah. If people see this and they see me stumbling on it, they'll probably like crucify me. But yeah, he like posts the pages on Twitter. I think it's an online comic, right? But he's like, yeah, he has a big fan base, and he did a Wolverine Infinity comic, right? So that's what I was working on before this, actually. But Infinity Comics has a weird system, so I had trouble with that. But I really enjoyed working with him on that. But the story is that when I was doing that, when I was struggling with the deadlines on that, my editor, then working for Marvel, Sarah Brunstad, I think she is at Mad Cave. I'm not sure, but she's not at Marvel anymore, right? She's moved on. But back then, she was like sending me an email about some restructuring of the schedule, and she suddenly went, yeah, we just want to make sure your schedule doesn't conflict with Vengeance of the Moon Knight. And I'm like, excuse me, what? And she was like, oh no, I'm sorry, you're actually going on to Moon Knight now. So this kind of shows you, like, it's not really up to
oh,
us what
oh,
we like to do
wow.
as an MP. So
Yeah.
they kind of move you around based on what they think is going to work. And as you know, Vengeance of Moon Knight was my entry point into Moon Knight, and people seem to be enjoying my work. So yeah, now I'm going to be on Moon Knight for as long as, they find my work enjoyable, and
Yeah.
as long as I deliver within reasonable deadlines, I guess. But yeah, that's the thing. Even if I had a choice, I would probably stick with Moon Knight because I'm really enjoying it. My style is very much based on negative spaces, right?
Mhm.
So, like, I love playing with light and shadow, like dark, black and white. If you look at my work, there is a lot of shading and volume, but you'll also see there's a lot more just stark black and white and red, if you know what I do, right? I love black, white, and red. Um, but overall, that's why I think Moon Knight is so fun for me, because I get to play with action, which is something I love, and I get to play with that stark contrast. Um, so yeah, I think I'm sticking around Moon Knight as long as they'll have me.
I hope you all had as much fun watching that as I did in having that conversation with Dev. We're truly appreciative of him, and he's a true member of this community. And we look forward to a lot more conversations with other creators in the future, and maybe another one with Dev to kind of make up for that the technical difficulties he had. He's truly an engaging person, and really enjoyed every moment of that. So yeah, without further ado, that's it. Keep an eye on the channel for more videos in the future, and as always, be excellent to each other.